And this is Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. And we're back again.
Indeed. The world keeps spinning on, doesn't it?
As the world turns. Well, this is the first week of Maddie being our full-time producer. Ryan has left us for greener pastures.
It already feels like a totalitarian dictatorship in here, doesn't it?
It is. She's...
You know, she refused to give us a countdown.
Well, we're going to have a talk with her about that. Well, if you'd like to join the show with your questions or comments, please join us at toll-free 855-244-0077. And if you want to join us locally, 244-0077. I was kind of debating off and on whether to do this story, but since I want to have it posted as its individual thing on Facebook, I'll just go ahead and run through it here real quick. And if you'd like to comment, you're welcome. But since you mentioned you weren't a real big racing or NASCAR fan, chime in or not. This was kind of in a response to some support that's going on out there for a particular driver named Tony Stewart, who was involved in a NASCAR driver, actually, who was involved in a racing incident in sprint car racing. And he apparently didn't lift and hit another driver who was out wanting to confront Tony for driving him into the wall. And the back tire caught him, and this is what I wrote. I know my opinion of Tony Stewart is jaded. I don't like him, but I don't like Jeff Gordon either. So if Jeff Gordon hit a guy and killed him on track, I'd say it was probably an accident. But Stewart has a history of poor sportsmanship that does have a pattern. Stewart sees himself as NASCAR's self-appointed sheriff. After Dale Earnhardt Sr. died, some fans and commentators opined that NASCAR needed someone, quote, to set the young guy straight who got too big for their britches. Stewart has gladly obliged. These are just a few of the things I've seen and read. Stewart shoves and grabs reporters' camera and smashes it on the ground. Fans report that Tony Stewart is the least fan-friendly when seeking an autograph, Dale Jr. being the most fan-approachable. Stewart has hit and wrecked every other driver on the series. Stewart is the only driver I can remember being fined by his sponsor, Home Depot. Stewart has been heard on the radio threatening to hit opposing crew guys who he feels is getting in his way on purpose on pit road. I have personally witnessed Stewart grab other male drivers' rears, poke or goose male reporters in the genitals and rear. On pit road once, he walked up behind a girl in a skirt and grabbed her rear with both hands. Gotten out of his car, throwing a helmet at another driver. Stewart has said when you mess with the bull, you're going to get the horns. Routinely has insulted sponsors such as Goodyear and champion driver commentator Darrell Waltrip and Kenny Wallace also. Drove a complete lap giving Rusty Wallace the bird. Stewart thinks since Dale died, he inherited the Intimidator title. Stewart has been called to the NASCAR trailer more than any other driver in the series. Stewart tried to punch another driver, Joey Logano, who goes 140 pounds soaking wet because the driver blocked Stewart, according to him. Stewart once ran Matt Kenseth from the top of the turn at Daytona into the infield for having the nerve to side draft him, something Stewart does himself routinely. He hits drivers for blocking him. Stewart does it all the time. This is the short list. One time in my neighborhood, a girl was trying to flag down a kid she liked on my street in front of my house. He didn't want to stop. She insisted that he stop. He swerved, she moved. He swerved again, she moved, then froze. As I turned away, not wanting to look, his bumper hit her below the knee, sending her 10 to 12 feet in the air. That's what happened to Stewart. Did he kill the kid with purpose? No. But he was being a jerk. He knew the kid was mad. He didn't want to acknowledge the kid and tried to intimidate the young man by goosing the accelerator. The kid wasn't moving and Stewart wasn't going to back down. The kid froze. It's called the game of chicken. Stewart has an image to keep up. Stewart is just a arrogant, peed-off demeanor. He's always in a foul mood, which he accredits to claustrophobia and migraine headaches. He's always felt the NASCAR fans and series beneath him, always fancied himself more of an IndyCar Formula One driver and wanting a more elite fan base. Well, NASCAR has let him get by with this bad boy persona, so they are just as guilty as Tony the Tiger. Well, you smoke this kid.
So you have a stupid driver with a God complex, and you have another stupid driver who gets out of his car to confront somebody while other cars are driving by. So it's the immovable object meets the
game of machismo,
right.
bravado.
Well, it kind of reminds me of what's going on in Ferguson right now. You've got cops with a God complex who are going around running roughshod over people and their rights, and you have people who are rallying around to defend what by all accounts are, a complete lowlife thug who robbed a convenience store before he got himself shot to death. So you have two stupid actions creating a massive vortex of idiocy going on right now. So I don't know. It's just a very interesting correlation that struck me between those events and what happened on the track there.
A final note to this segment on that particular topic. Apparently, some reports today said that Darrell Waltrip and Rusty Wallace have some insider knowledge that Tony Stewart is potentially retiring.
Well, I think the government should come in and ban race cars because it's probably the race car's fault. It was a faulty race car that the accelerator might have gotten stuck or the bumper wasn't calibrated correctly.
Yeah,
So you know what? We should probably just take race cars out of the hands of regular race car drivers and just put them in the hands of government race car drivers, government-sanctioned race car drivers, and we'll all be a lot safer.
Anything that kills people has to be banned.
That's right. It could not have been Tony Stewart acting foolishly. It had to be the car. It had to be the car.
Yes. Well, being that you mentioned what's going on in St. Louis, I had some comments about that this week. Not being too enlightened on the particular givens of the story of what transpired in St. Louis, just as in general terms. And I kind of started out my post on Facebook by saying I'm going to make some racial commentary here. If you're easily offended, be warned. And I go on to say generations of black men in particular have been conditioned by the vile pollution spewed by Malcolm X, the idea that the Constitution was never meant for the black man, that unless they have their own courts, hospitals, country, police, and justice system, they will never have justice in the white man's world. And that any black that dare stray from this orthodoxy will be labeled an Uncle Tom. So when things like this happen in St. Louis, and at the time I wrote this, I was not totally up to speed on all the details of it, but immediately my thoughts was that they're always in any instance going to see themselves as the victim, no matter the fact. Now, I'm not disputing the facts in this case. I just get tired of the peeing and moaning and Al Sharpton stirring the pot. There's good cops and there are cops who are jerks. The jerks are jerks to everyone, not just blacks. But they will never see it this way because they've bought into the victim head mentality, which kind of makes me wish we had picked our own cotton. If you don't like it, move, and give the rest of us, black or white, some peace and quiet. I never owned a slave. None of you were slaves, so pick yourself up by your bootstraps and grab hold of the opportunities this country offers you. Where Malcolm X left off, Louis Farrakhan has picked up and profiteered, again with the theory that a man can't be a man under his father's roof. Fair enough, so go for it.
Well, I think the interesting thing about what's happening in Ferguson is that the racial hornet's nest that is trying to be poked and prodded by Obama and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, that's not really taking in this case. In fact, you have a lot of people down there that are saying, F Obama, F Al Sharpton. They're not taking to this thing. This has been more about a reaction to the militarization of the police It's not purely about race. It's about the outrage of an out-of-control cop who shot to death an unarmed man. Now, whether or not that unarmed man, and there are reports that are coming out now, the police are releasing reports that, and video and screenshots of this guy robbing a convenience store prior to his being shot. Here's the thing. When he was shot, the cop was not confronting him over, he wasn't trying to arrest this guy because he was confronting a robbery suspect. Cop told this guy, get out of the middle of the street. This guy mouthed off. Something happened. This guy ended up getting shot in the back and killed. Mm-hmm. Eyewitnesses are saying that the guy had his hands up, saying he was unarmed. Got shot anyway. And then the reaction of the police afterwards were to seal up the area, seal up the whole town. The feds assisted in this by issuing a no-fly zone over the area, so that way reporters couldn't get any aerial shots or anything like that. They left this guy, his body in the street for hours while they sealed off the area and everything. So it's outrage over this abusive action, and then the further actions of the police in the ensuing nights, going around and stopping protesters, shooting tear gas at reporters who were plain reporters. You had Al Jazeera, who were most definitely setting up their equipment. They were setting up their lighting equipment. Cops shoot tear gas canisters at them, start firing rubber bullets directly at these reporters. They were very clearly reporters. And then the police have the audacity today to release a statement saying that, we were just trying to help the reporters, and they actually thanked us, which is absolutely not the case. So you've got these two idiotic things that are happening there, and it's created this whole vortex of stupidity. And it's symptomatic of the militarization of the police in this country. The police in this country developed an attitude that they're no longer there to protect and to serve the people, unless it's in their own interest. And when the representatives of a supposedly representative government, which is supposed to be derived of the people, by the people, and for the people, when they start viewing themselves as a separate entity and start acting to protect the interests of themselves as a separate entity from the people, that's where tyranny is born. And that's what we're seeing here in Ferguson.
Well, I've got a question for you, and I see what your feeling is on it. There's been some complaints by the residents that they ought to have the right to quote unquote protest peacefully, which that's absolutely fine, but they're advocating that they ought to be able to do this 24/7.
The Constitution does not put a time limit on how long you can protest.
Okay, well, that brings me to my point or my question. This is fine, but when you get a group of individuals and you get an inflamed darkness, the cover of darkness tends to bring out the worst in individuals, and especially individuals who have a grievance and individuals who are trying to sabotage sometimes, like the 99%, 1%. There was a lot of anarchists and stuff that got in it that supposedly made it bad. What do you do? You know, do you really want, say, in your neighborhood, 10,000 people, 20,000 people out protesting? I mean, at some point, should there be a curfew on this activity? Should it be during daylight hours? I have no problem with any individual walking the streets, whatever hours of the night, if they've got somewhere they're going and whatever. But I would be a little nervous if 10,000 people were protesting in my neighborhood.
If the residents were requesting some sort of action like that, then I think it would be warranted, but they haven't. The residents are more upset about flashbang grenades and tear gas going off in their neighborhoods than they are about the protesters. The residents of Ferguson want to protest. They want to see justice done. They want to voice their displeasure. They want to be out there protesting.
Well, we're coming on our first break, and we'll pick this conversation up as we come back from the break. But this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and co-host David Canute. We will return shortly.
Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray, we're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Canuck Jr., Maddie producing. Well, a couple of thoughts I had on the situation in St. Louis was, first off, I don't care what the situation is. There needs to be protest. There needs to be resolution of the situation. There needs to be an investigation. There needs to be someone held accountable if the guy done something, if the cop done something that wasn't right. But somebody breaking in and carrying out 4 mag wheels doesn't have anything to do with this conversation.
And I agree with that.
Or this debate.
I agree with that. Looting is deplorable in this. I mean, it's not about looting.
I don't like the opportunists who are taking advantage of this situation. My second thought would be...
Well, let me just say real quick, the reports from looters, the reports about looting that I've heard are that looters came in from outside of town to come and loot. So, and it's totally taking advantage of that, and it's an animalistic response to something like this.
I want to say, if the finest, I'm an auto racing fan, hunting fan. If the roof blew off a Sportsman's and Sportsman's warehouse was across the street from me, I wouldn't stick my head out the door to see what was happening.
Right. But here's another thing. While the looting was going on, the cops were allowing that to happen. The cops were breaking up peaceful protests, they were going into McDonald's, arresting a store full of reporters, telling them to get out, completely illegal, unconstitutional actions. But they were letting the looting go on because they wanted that to go on. They wanted that perception to be out there.
Well, my second thought would be... one thing bothers me about the story, and I'm not, I've heard some eyewitness accounts on both sides of the story, but apparently this kid was a pretty big kid. I'm guessing this kid was in excess of 6'2" to 6'4", and probably went in the neighborhood of 225 to 250 pounds. He's pretty big young guy for 16, 18 years old, whatever he was. According to what somebody said, one of the eyewitnesses was saying that somehow the police officer sitting in a car reached up and grabbed this kid around the neck and pulled him in the car. Now, I don't know if nobody specified whether he was leaning over looking in. Supposedly how this all transpired was these guys, 3 kids was walking in the middle of the road, and a police car maybe flipped their radio on or something, said, get out of the middle of the street. And this is kind of what transpired from it. Now, today, there was a report that apparently this kid is a suspect in a armed robbery, and had also been got him on camera, got a picture that they think is him, and that supposedly he had stolen just prior to this the cop confrontation in the street, had stolen apparently somebody's saying a $49 box of cigars. Now, the grab by the neck part bothers me a little bit because I don't know how that would be physically possible for someone sitting in a...
That's right. That's not physically possible. Plus, chokehold is illegal anyway.
Yeah. But my final thought on it is it just harkens back to me whenever Al Sharpton gets in anything. I generally take a negative attitude about it, and maybe I shouldn't. I want to be fair to everybody. I want to hear the facts. I want to hear the sides of it on both sides. I want to see it hammered out in a court of law. But I often think of these instances as the boy who cried wolf too much. And immediately, without anybody knowing the facts one way or another, it's been reports that's come out, it's been eyewitness reports on both sides of the aisle. Immediately, the black individuals who are conditioned to believe that there's no justice for the black man in the country immediately is going, and it all goes back to the George, I shouldn't say goes back to, because it didn't start with George Zimmerman, but the George Zimmerman case kind of brought it in that Al Sharpton made the comment that the George Zimmerman verdict signaled that it was open season on black people in this country. And this is the attitude that a lot of blacks have, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not here to say that may be their point of view. But I'm saying before Al Sharpton comes in and starts stirring the pot, let's get the grown-ups in the room to figure this out.
He's already tried to come in and stir up the pot, and it's failed. It's miserably failed.
I hope so.
No, it has miserably failed. If you watch the live stream like I was last night, the live streams of what was going on from people on the streets, watching what was going on in the streets, it wasn't a bunch of people talking about race and saying they're whitey's out to kill me or anything like that. It was people going around saying that they want justice for this person who was shot, and they're sick of the police brutality, and they're sick of this militarized mindset that has taken over police departments around the country. When you have them being trained now, police departments around the country are being trained for no hesitation shooting. They train on targets of little kids. They train on targets of pregnant women and old people. Those are their shooting targets right now. They're trained if they go to a stop and there's any dog in the area, they shoot the dog immediately. I cannot tell you over the past how many years, how many reports that I read about, cops busted into the wrong house and they shot the family dog. Doesn't matter the size of the dog. These people are being trained to be trigger-happy thugs.
Well, I agree there is some of that going on, and I would also just say that I would like to see some investigation if this particular police department has a history of a grievance against the black community. Now, I did hear some anecdotal evidence on TV that was saying that this is relatively, up until now, been a pretty peaceful and a get-along neighborhood with the police department. Now, if there's information evidence contrary to that, I'm willing to listen and entertain and hear that evidence. But
I don't know the evidence. I don't know the evidence of the history of what's happened. Before in Ferguson, I just know what's going on right now. But here's the thing: there were no dispatches or anything that he was going after a robbery suspect or anything like that. It was just this guy saying, get out of the street, this other guy mouthing off, and then an altercation, and then this guy gets shot in the back.
Right.
And when he was shot in the back, the police dispatches were released by Anonymous last night. There's nothing here the police dispatches, they found out about the shooting through the news. So this guy didn't even call, the police officer involved didn't even call this thing in.
Well, the ballistics will tell the truth. If the guy's shot in the back, it's going to be pretty hard to conceal that. And and they said there was a gunshot within the car, so I'm assuming there's going to be some gunpowder residue if there was a close-up shot. So, and then the guy supposedly went down the street and had his hands up and was shot in the back. Now, if that's the case,
I haven't heard of any shot in the car. All I've seen is the guy lying dead in the street.
right? Well, supposedly, there's been some information that during the struggle in the car, the kid was trying to reach for the cop's gun. And the cop supposedly discharged one shot inside the car. Now, if there's a bullet hole in the roof of the car or some bullet hole in the car, that should be brought into a court of law. If there's any kind of residue, if the kid's been shot in the back, these are all facts that should and by all rights come out. I mean, I want to see some truth in it. And if the cop done something wrong, let's prosecute the cop to the fullest of the law.
Well, things have gotten a lot better now that somebody else has taken over the police response. Things were a lot more peaceful last night. They didn't have militarized goon squads in the streets, and there were no reports of looting or violence or anything like that. One quick thing I want to read real quick before we move on here at the top of the hour. Rand Paul released, I think, the most eloquent response to what's going on. He released that as an opinion piece through Time magazine just this week. And I wanted to read some excerpts from that, or as much as I can before the break here. Anyone who thinks race does not skew the application of criminal justice in this country is just not paying close enough attention. Look, that's the preface. I'm sorry. Here we go. All right. The shooting of 18-year-old Michael Brown is an awful tragedy that continues to send shockwaves through the community of Ferguson, Missouri, and across the nation. If I had been told to get out of the street as a teenager, there would have been a distinct possibility that I might have smarted off, but I wouldn't have expected to be shot. The outrage in Ferguson is understandable, though there is never an excuse for rioting or looting. There is a legitimate role for the police to keep the peace, but there should be a difference between a police response and a military response. The images and scenes we continue to see in Ferguson resemble war more than traditional police action. Glenn Reynolds in Popular Mechanics recognized the increasing militarization of the police 5 years ago. In 2009, he wrote, let's see here. Well, this printer cut that off, so I apologize. Basically saying the police are supposed to be different from the military. They're supposed to protect their fellow citizens from criminals and to maintain order with a minimum of force. But he says most police officers are good cops and good people. It is an unquestionably difficult job, especially in the current circumstances. There is a systematic problem with today's law enforcement. Not surprisingly, big government has been at the heart of the problem. Washington has incentivized the militarization of local police precincts by using federal dollars to help municipal governments build what are essentially small armies, where police departments compete to acquire military gear that goes far beyond what most Americans think of as law enforcement. These are the MRAPs that you see coming into communities of just a few thousand people, etc. This is usually done in the name of fighting the war on drugs or terrorism. The Heritage Foundation's Evan Bernick wrote in 2013 that the Department of Homeland Security has handed out anti-terrorism grants to cities and towns across the country, enabling them to buy armored vehicles, guns, armor, aircraft, and other equipment. Bernick continued, federal agencies of all stripes, as well as local police departments in towns with populations less than 14,000, come equipped with SWAT teams and heavy artillery. Bernick noted the cartoonish imbalance between the equipment some police departments possess and the constituents they serve. Today, he wrote, Bossier Parish, Louisiana, has a .50 caliber gun mounted on an armored vehicle. The Pentagon gives away millions of pieces of military equipment to police departments across the country, tanks included. So he goes on and on. The piece is called We Must Demilitarize the Police. And that really is the heart of the problem, not just in Ferguson, but across the entire nation. It's this mindset that has befallen the police department because they have been militarized, and this was all laid out years ago in Rand Corporation documents as part of a de facto martial law that is now existing in the country.
Well, just a quick thought before we go to the break. We'll be breaking here in about a minute or so. During the Abu Ghraib incidents during the Iraq conflict, there was some studies that were brought up in the media that were shown that groups of people who they split up into guards and prisoners in simulated situations where a certain segment of people were appointed guards, certain people were appointed prisoners, and they switched these around, and they've done a number of studies on this. Inevitably, the guards almost always turned out to be mean and vindictive. It's human nature. And
so we should excuse that.
No, but what I'm saying is I don't think that I guess the point I made to another friend on Facebook is not excusing it all, but like politics, I don't think the being a police officer or a peace officer should be a lifetime achievement. In other words, I don't think you ought to make being a career out of a politician, and it's pretty hard to make a career out of law enforcement, because inevitably you deal with so much corruption that you just inevitably end up being jaded.
Well, sure, you get jaded, but we used to have career policemen before, and it never used to be like this. What we've seen is a decline in morality in this country.
Well,
and
I'll tell you a quick story when we return.
It never used to be like this.
Quick story when we return, but this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and co-host David Canute. We'll return after the break. I think I'll move on.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Boom, boom, bang, bang. Lie down,
We're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. I just had a quick anecdotal story here. My grandpa tells a story years ago when the Model Ts were still on the road, and the old-time traffic cop, Tony Mihalovich in town, cited him for some bad brakes, some squeaky brakes or something. So my grandpa took the car to a mechanic that he had, and he fixed these brakes so they'd throw you through the windshield when you tapped the brakes. Of course, Tony was going to check the car and make sure the brakes were fixed. And,
if only service legends had been around back then and were servicing cars.
And let's just say Tony wasn't happy about getting his head cracked in the windshield because of the sensitivity of the brakes. But the old-timers in Des Moines will tell you about if they were drunk and they got what they called the elevator ride in the Des Moines Police Department between floors down to the jailhouse from the booking floors. Mm-hmm. You got, if you was a drunk and you gave any guff, you got the beat-up ride on the elevator. And when you come out the elevator, you pretty much were bent over from getting punched in the stomach and what have you, stuff that wouldn't necessarily show. There's good cops, there's bad cops. A lot of the cops are coming out of the military, particularly the Marine Corps. Not so much the Navy, not so much the Air Force, not so much the Army. The cops tend to come from one service of the military, the Marines. There's good, there's bad.
There's always going to be good and bad. You're never going to eliminate entirely that bad element. The point, though, is that the bad element is taking over, whereas before it used to be the good element. We never used to, have a policy of treating our prisoners that badly. Prisoners of war, we never used to torture or beat them or anything like that. This is a spiritual shift in law enforcement in this country.
Well, on that point, let me just ask you if you agree with this or don't agree with this, because this kind of pertains to maybe some of our differences in foreign policy. Do you feel that prisoners who are caught on the battlefield who aren't in uniform are entitled to Geneva rights?
Yes.
Why?
They're still human beings. They're still entitled to basic human rights.
Well, the Geneva Rights is a convention that's signed between warring parties that they're going to treat their prisoners equally and have some prisoners exchanged after the war. But these are countries who've signed in and bought into this, and even at that, Geneva Rights weren't always applied evenly and fairly amongst countries.
So since they're not a total member of a country that's at war with us, you think we should be able to do whatever we want?
Well, do you have any issue with holding a prisoner in prison till the war's over?
Until the war's over? No, I don't have issue with that. Here's the thing, though. The war on terror is not a real war. It's a fabrication. It's an absolute fabrication to get us into this mode of endless war, endless militarization. It's to give us an excuse for endless things, part of which is the militarization of the police in this country. You see, the whole scapegoating of Muslims after 9/11, that was just to get part of it was to get the religious right in a tizzy, that we're in a holy war, and co-opt them into signing on to this dehumanization campaign that we had going on in the world. The other part of that was to get us used to seeing these tactics that we were using overseas, and then slowly turn the switch so that these tactics would be used right here. Drone usage, human rights abuses and everything, those are all things that are being introduced now into this country that were field tested in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I'll kind of put my conversation that I was going to have on the Clintons and the Obamas till the last segment, but since we got started on this conversation, I've done a little research and study of the World War I and II and the history of some wars. Not in depth as being an expert on the subject, but there was people during World War II that implied that Pearl Harbor, and I don't know that they used the word false flag, But there was people that implied that Pearl Harbor was a false flag operation, and I suppose if you took that to the ultimate conclusion, you could say that the vast military-industrial complex was out to design nuclear warheads, atomic bombs, a fat boy, whatever, that like they dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was all a plot to draw the United States and Britain into a world war.
Pearl Harbor was not a classical false flag. I think what the argument is that the Roosevelt administration knew that there was an attack coming. They wanted us to get into the war. They felt that we should get involved and that we should let the attack happen in order to cause outrage and get us involved in World War II. Here's the thing. The Japanese declared war on us. They had declared war on us, and whether or not we knew that Pearl Harbor was coming or was going to happen, Pearl Harbor was still coming. We had this other nation declare war on us.
Well, some people were saying we had early warning that Pearl Harbor was happening,
Right.
and we done nothing about it. Now, if that's true, potentially some would draw the conclusion that we wanted that to happen on purpose, so we had a right to drop these atomic bombs, the Manhattan Project.
But to get back to the point, the difference between foreknowledge and a false flag is creating an event under the guise of an enemy event. So if I wanted to say that Frank victimized me, I would try and do something to make it look like you did it, and then I would just say, "Oh, you did it." Okay,
but we kind of come to an agreement a couple of weeks ago that a lot of our military and our foreign policy strategies based on our protection of Israel. But let me ask you this, just kind of a. I guess this might define maybe the difference between you and I on our view of military. But you're an East Sider. I'm an East Sider, Northeast Sider. Let's say you've got a mortal enemy in Waukee, and that mortal enemy would like to fire a rocket.
Is this hypothetical, or are you talking about my real life? Because all of my enemies are based in Waukee. You sons of...
Well, let's say your mortal enemy in Waukee has got some rockets, but they won't quite reach your house. So he goes over and he makes some agreements with some people on the south side that might be a little closer in proximity to you. And so you go and you try to counter that by funding a gang over on the south side to kind of do battle with that guy and keep that guy out of the south side. I guess what this comes down to, during the Cold War, we was constantly trying to keep, and at the time the missile capacity wasn't as good, but we didn't want ICBMs located in Cuba on our back door. That's what the Cuban crisis was during Kennedy's administration, that Russia was moving ICBM missiles.
Which was a response because we had moved ICBM missiles off, on their back door. So
Sure. So it could have been a tit for tat. But the point being is if you funded this gang on the south side to boot your mortal enemy out that was trying to position these missiles to hit you, and then that gang that you funded and trained or done something to turned against you and done something to you, is what happened to you justifiable because you funded them? So I guess the point I'm trying to make sometimes is I hear these allegations immediately when the U.S. does something. Well, the U.S. funded and trained bin Laden. Well, I don't think we trained and funded him to hurt us. So, your thoughts.
Well, right. We trained and funded bin Laden to use him in Afghanistan during the proxy war with the Soviets back after they invaded Afghanistan. We helped fund him and used him in Bosnia and Kosovo back then. Bin Laden did not have anything to do with 9/11. This whole government conspiracy theory where it's 19 guys sitting around in a cave.
Well, he took credit for it, though,
no, he didn't.
on tape.
No, he didn't. Oh, the tape where he's sitting around at dinner When he's signing stuff with his right hand and bin Laden's known to be a left-handed dude. That tape was created by the CIA. Absolutely. If you look at pictures of bin Laden and then look at still pictures from the guy in that tape, their noses are completely different. They're completely different people. That is an absolute fabrication. In fact, bin Laden gave interviews after 9/11 to foreign outlets where he said, no, I didn't have anything to do with this. And as I've hit time and time again, our chief translator for the FBI, Sibyl Edmonds, had listened in on conversations between the CIA and bin Laden, and she had testified about this before Congress and talked about how she had overheard how the CIA had given him marching orders and everything like that. Bin Laden was just a scapegoat. He was just a scapegoat boogeyman so we could have something to prop up as this great villain that we have to go over. It's not the Soviet Union anymore. Now we're going after bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. Do you know when Al-Qaeda first came into existence? Al-Qaeda first came into existence during the trial of the Blind Sheikh for the bombing of the 1993 of the World Trade Center. We wanted to try this guy under RICO laws, and we had to prove that an organization existed. So we came up with this thing called Al-Qaeda, which is a shortened Arabic version of the base. That's what the literal translation is the base. And it's a shortened Arabic word for database. And all Al-Qaeda was a database of mujahideen fighters who would fight in Afghanistan for money.
Well, we got about 2 minutes before our break, and I want to hit the Clinton-Obama thing in the last segment. But I know most of the people that bombed our Twin Towers were from...
Right. The alleged hijackers, most of them were from Saudi Arabia. We didn't go to war with Saudi Arabia.
Well, obviously, we have a situation where we have a little friendlier thing going on for oil with the Saudis. But who bombed our buildings?
Those planes, these 19 guys, they were assets. They were taking part in training exercises. They did not know what was going to happen. These guys have been witnessed. You would think of these people were supposedly devout Muslim jihadists. You wouldn't expect them to be out partying in strip clubs or everything. And that's exactly where they were. Muhammad Atta trained at a U.S. military base.
Well, we'll pick up this conversation next week on this, but we're going to talk about the Clinton and Obama feud next. This has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and co-host David Kanuke.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Well, we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. If we have time, David's got a hypocrite of the week, but I wanted to get into the new book by Ed Klein, called Blood Feud, and this documents the divide, the chasm, the rift between sides of the Democratic Party. And he says if you think there's a chasm or a divide, in the Republican Party between the Tea Party and the conservatives and the Blue Dogs or the Blue Bloods, that there's a continental divide between the Clintons and the Obamas. And he documents some things. And I want to get to some stuff that is in Ed Klein's book. And I posted on my Facebook page a article showing top 10 striking revelations from Ed Klein's bombshell new book. But one of the things that struck me that he said, and Ed doesn't blink. Ed was on C-SPAN.
Something wrong with his eyelids?
Well, he's on C-SPAN this week, and he got quite a few negative callers that I think was lying to get on. They've got a Democrat, a Independent, and a Republican line, and I think a lot of the people who were claiming to be independent, maybe conservative, was lying to the call screener, because there was a lot of black individuals got on, and they just basically feel that Barry's being picked on. But one of the allegations that, and he says, I'm just documenting what has been written. Yes, I use anonymous sources, but Bob Woodward made a career on anonymous sources, and he says I do name some names in the book. But he's saying that more than anyone, more than any single person that's calling the shots in the White House, he points the finger at Valerie Jarrett. Mm-hmm. And he says that precisely Valerie Jarrett lives in the White House.
Yeah.
And that she has a Secret Service detail. Now that is astonishing to me that she has a Secret Service detail. And he makes the argument that it is David Axelrod, John Brennan, and Valerie Jarrett who's running the foreign policy. And he says that because Obama's mother was never much around, and he was kind of shipped around to the grandparents to live, that he views Valerie Jarrett as a mother figure. And he makes a decision or something that he's going to do something, and he says that Michelle Obama and Valerie Jarrett are thick as thieves, and they get together and they determine what they think the position of the administration should be. And a lot of times Barry has to renege or back down and eat his words, according to Ed Klein.
I'm not sure how much backing down. I'm not sure, I haven't read the book yet. I'm not sure if it's accurate that he reviews her as a mother figure. That could be true. But I have heard from a lot of different sources that Valerie Jarrett is essentially the one that's running the White House. So that really does line up with, a lot of stuff that I've heard throughout the years. So that's not too surprising there. She does kind of live in the shadows. She's an Iranian-born, radical, basically. And I think a lot of the foreign policy moves that you see are coming from her. She's kind of like his handler, I would imagine.
Yes, and he says that the Clintons have been stabbed in the back by the Obamas, and they're not going to support Hillary for a 2016 run, and that he's out searching for his own quote-unquote mini-me to hand select who is going to be his supposed successor. But the Clintons say that Obama is an amateur and a bungler, and the Obamas call the Clintons opportunists. And I think both have hit the money or hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any love between the two factions. I'm still of the mindset that what we have in this country now is an occupational force, and there's no intention of him leaving. So I'm not sure how accurate the search for his mini-me is, so to speak. But anything's possible. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is no love between the Clintons and the Obamas.
And Ed Klein asserts that Hillary's taking some shots over Obama's bow, and he says this will really pump up the volume, and this will go into full bore in and after the 2014 election. That as soon as, but an interesting point that Charles Krauthammer brought up this week that I mentioned to you last night on the phone that you kind of took notice of. Mm-hmm. And Krauthammer says clearly that if he pulls the trigger on signing with the stroke of a pen an executive order that would legalize somewhere between 5 and 10 million illegals, giving them work status, Charles Krauthammer asserts that that will signal to him and others anyway that Obama is totally given up on winning the 2014 Senate and Congress. And you had some thoughts that you kind of felt that that signaled something to you.
That signals to me that they're much farther along in the process of suspending elections outright than we had thought. And that something big is going to happen between the point that he does, put that executive order out, if he puts that executive order out, and the point of November when we have the elections there. So, yeah, I mean, if Obama is supposedly out there trying to protect the Democratic Party and play party politics and everything, why would he do something now to jeopardize, any success that his party? Why would he do something now to ensure that his party is decimated in 2014 and make things that much harder in the grand theater of politics, so to speak?
And Rush Limbaugh, who I listen to occasionally, made the point a couple of maybe a month or so back that the Clintons won't leave Washington.
You mean the Obamas?
Yes, the Obamas won't leave Washington, and that they will hang around to make sure they could have daily press briefings. Whatever the new president, potentially, if there's a new president makes, they could counter that with some press briefing of their own, and says that basically they're going to be permanent residents of D.C. Now, in Ed Klein's book, he makes the point that potentially Michelle Obama is eyeing a run for the Illinois Senate, much like Hillary carpetbagged in New York Senate. Mm-hmm. And this could be all part of this grand plan that the Obamas don't plan on leaving the D.C.
Well, yeah, if there are elections, then yeah, they don't plan on leaving D.C. That's absolutely right. But I still say, with the Department of Homeland Security purchasing 2 billion rounds of ammunition. This is not for the U.S. military. This is for Department of Homeland Security internal departments. With them purchasing 2 billion rounds of ammunition, that's about 3 or 4 bullets for each person in the United States. They don't plan on leaving. Everything that has been set up in this country, from the militarized police to getting rid of all military commanders that don't swear allegiance to Obama, to Predator drones, to the NSA spy grid and everything that's been set up. This is all set up as an occupational communist regime. They don't plan on leaving, and they are not above nuking a city, as Lindsey Graham was threatening, just this past week over ISIS, which is another U.S.-funded organization. They're not above nuking a city or releasing a pandemic or doing something to ensure that they have cover to suspend the elections.
Well, this week I had some other things. Dianne Feinstein, Dennis Kucinich, a South Park episode I saw, and Ukrainian nukes. Just a few topics that I failed to get to because we pretty much had a wall-to-wall show.
Hey, who do you like for SummerSlam on Sunday? John Cena or Brock Lesnar? Who's taking the title home?
Unless Brock Lesnar plans on being a full-time champ, I'm going to say Cena, but I could be wrong.
I still say Lesnar, but they could pull a wild one and have what's his face cash in Money in the Bank.
Sure.
Seth Rollins.
Yes. Well, I think that will happen. Lesnar will beat the crap out of him. Rollins will come in and take it, and then it's going to be Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I still say that.
This has been Frank Holzhauser and Frankly Speaking with my co-host David Kanyuk, and we will see you next week.